I've never told this story to anyone before, maybe because I knew no one would believe me, but that night still lives with me. It was a Tuesday, just after midnight. I was alone at home. My husband was on a business trip, and the kids were staying at my mother's. The silence felt heavier than usual. You know that kind of silence that feels like it's watching you? I was about to go to bed when I heard it. A knock. Three slow, heavy knocks on the front door. I froze. I live in a small village where nothing ever happens. Who would be knocking at this hour? I didn't move. Then I heard a voice, a low, whispering man's voice. Open the door, please. But what made my blood freeze wasn't the voice itself. It was that I recognized it. It was my brother's voice. The problem? My brother died 9 years ago. I didn't open the door. I couldn't. I ran upstairs, locked the bedroom door, and sat in the corner, shaking. The knocking didn't continue. There were no footsteps, no sounds. Just silence again. But I knew. Something had been standing on the other side. I don't know how long I sat there, shaking in that dark room. I must have fallen asleep at some point because I woke up to the sound of birds outside. For a second, I convinced myself it was all just a dream. Maybe my mind had played tricks on me. Maybe the stress, the loneliness. But when I walked downstairs, I saw something that made my stomach twist. The front door. It was unlocked. I know I locked it. I double-checked it before I went to bed, but now the chain was dangling loose and the bottom bolt was halfway turned. Something or someone had been inside. I checked every room. Nothing was missing, nothing broken. But when I got to the staircase again, I saw it. A shadow. It wasn't mine. It was on the wall by the window, tall, motionless as if it was watching me. But when I turned to face it directly, there was nothing there. I stood frozen, staring at the wall, heart pounding in my chest. Then I heard it again. That voice. Only this time, it was whispering from inside the house. My feet refused to move. I stood on the stairs, barely breathing, listening to that whisper. I'm cold. Let me in. It was coming from the guest room. The door was slightly open. But that room? I hadn't entered it in years. It was my brother's old room. After he died, we locked it, covered the mirror, kept it untouched. Slowly, I walked toward it. Every step felt like walking underwater. My hands were trembling. I reached for the doorknob. It was warm. The door creaked open. Inside, everything looked exactly as we left it years ago. The bed, the shelves, even the dusty jacket on the chair. And then the closet door creaked. I turned toward it. It moved slightly, just an inch. Don't open it, something in my head whispered. But my hand moved anyway. I grabbed the handle, pulled. Nothing inside. Just darkness. But the air was freezing, and the smell, like wet soil and something old. As I turned to leave the room, I heard it right behind me, breathing. Slow, heavy, inches from my neck. I didn't scream. I couldn't. That breath on my neck, it wasn't a dream. I felt it. The warmth of it. The wetness. I ran out of the room and slammed the door shut. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I locked the door and stood there, trying to convince myself I was just losing my mind. Then I heard something fall. In the hallway. I stepped out slowly and saw it. A framed photo of my brother. Face down on the floor. It had hung on that wall for 10 years. The nail was still there. The glass wasn't broken. But it had fallen. And in its place, on the wall behind it, was a handprint A full, greasy, human-sized handprint. My hands were shaking. I grabbed the frame and hung it back up, covering the mark. Then something inside me said, "Go look in the mirror." I didn't want to, but I did. I walked to the mirror in the hallway, the one I always avoided. I stood in front of it, and behind me was someone standing on the stairs. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The figure in the mirror didn't move. It just stood there, still, watching. I told myself, turn around. Face it. It's not real. I turned. Nothing. The stairs were empty. But when I looked back into the mirror, he was still there. My brother. Pale face. Dark circles around his eyes, not the way I remembered him. "You left me," he whispered. I shook my head. "No, I didn't. I couldn't. I was just a kid." "You locked the door." "There was fire. I was scared." "You heard me scream." I dropped to my knees. Tears streamed down my face. It was true. I had locked the bedroom door. He was on the other side calling for help, and I had run. I never told anyone, not even my parents. They thought he died in his sleep, but he knew. And now, he was back. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't turn off the lights. Every creak, every gust of wind outside made me jump. I knew he was still there. At 3:12 a.m., the power went out. Not just a flicker. Full darkness. And then, footsteps coming down the hallway. I stood in the living room, frozen. I didn't call anyone. I knew no one could help me now. The footsteps stopped just behind me. Then a whisper. "It's your turn." I turned slowly. No one there, just cold. I reached for my phone. The screen was cracked, just like the phone we found in his old room. My heart raced. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. Then I saw it. On the wall, written in soot. "I never left." Since that night, I hear him every time the lights flicker. Every time I'm alone in the dark. My brother's not just a memory. He's here. And I don't think he ever plans to leave.